Hi Manoj, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
All well, all well. So anybody who is listening to this conversation, Manoj is a founder of LyfeIndex. It's a very unique concept to digitize the memory of our loved ones. To put it in a simple form, we all have come across while all might have grown up with hearing the stories about from our grannies about our ancestors. And the same thing concept is coming through the digital platform. But before I get into the detail of it, I would request Manoj if you could just highlight the facts about the life index. ये क्या है आखिर life index?
All right. First of all, Life Index is spelled with a Y. That's LyfeIndex. Now, we're not a memories platform. We're a memorial platform. So, difference between memories and memorial is you can have memories of somebody's birthday, somebody's anniversary. You would have pictures. You would have videos. Those are memories. However, we're memorials. Somebody, once they die, we put in the details of that person, who they were, what did they do, how did they die, what did they die of, so the next generation can find out about these people. As of today, if I asked you or your audience, what do you know about your great grandparents? And most of us will come back and say nothing or very minimal. In both those cases, that information will never be transferred to the next generations. And if it isn't, what have you lost? You've lost heritage, you've lost culture, you've lost bloodline, and on top of that, you've lost a lot of wisdom that these people gathered and distributed amongst the family members. To top it all, we've also lost a lot of medical information. Let's say if I asked you, what do you know about your great grandparents? How did they die? Most of us will say they had a natural death. Everybody has a natural death. But at the end of the day, what was the cause of it? Now, a lot of us don't realize that if it's a cardiac arrest, which means there was an issue related to your heart. And that's what most of the people go away in the sleep. So you need to figure those things out. If somebody died of cancer, and during those days we did not have medical so advanced that we could find out if it was actually cancer, right? So that's what we gather, and we are the only platform in the world which puts all of this information together so next generations can find out. We don't lose information of the older generations or generations which have gone away. As of today, if you go online, if you look at rich, famous king, queen, president, prime ministers, you'll find everything about them. What do you find about our family members? What is there available? Nothing, because the general population or the world does not care about every individual. What we want to care about is every individual out there, and that's why we state very clearly every story matters and every legacy has been made.
Oh. So when you say digitalizing or the storing the memories, right? So
Right.
how does this entirely go? So someone of the older age, or maybe of if I'm referring to the last generation of my grannies and my granddad, grandmom, and so on and so forth, is it expected that someone from my mom and dad store those information in the life index? How does this entirely works? Because yeah, that's something would be interested to know about it.
No, no worries. I think one thing that we don't realize that that this information is already put on to this platform once the person dies. So that person could be you, that person could be me, as long as it's a family member. Now, if I go back and if I start putting in information about my grandfather, I will not know everything. So who do I reach out to get that information from? My father, who's still alive, my grandmother, who's still alive, and I gather all of that information so that it is there. Now, my grandmother does not know anything about internet, so I help her put that information. My father is okay with technology, but he's not the best with it. So I help him put that information as well. But it has to be a family member. But it has to be only after this person has gone away.
Okay, so they share their stories about it, and those stories are stored in Life Index platform in a voice format, is it?
No, this is all text format. So if you look at over a period of time, but when you look at videos, right, in the past 20, 30 years, the formats have changed. So which means your quality has changed, which means the older quality has gone bad and you cannot see anything, which is blurry. And same thing happens for voice because once you put it in voice, Everything will change over a period of time because of technology. But one thing cannot be changed is text. Text will not go blurred. Text will never go corrupt. And you can see it over a period of time. And that's why every book that's written in text, not in voice.
So in that case, what you mean to say is someone has to actually write about it or the type about it in a textual format that can be passed on to the next generation to talk about their family legacy.
Correct. So let's put it this way. You go onto our platform, we provide you loads of questions. You answer those questions. We give you enough space as well for you to write. Let's say about my mother. Once she went away, I had enough questions because we want to know that medical information. That medical information is done. I want to write something personal about her. That's something that I have to put in. Now, these are not actual stories. These are a life form of a person, that who they were, what did they do, how did they die, what did they die of, all of that. Now, those can be filled with questionnaires because those are questions that can be answered. But when it comes to something from your heart, I want to dedicate something for my mother, and that's what I want to put in extra.
Okay, okay. So what are the other part of it? Because I understand the moment you talk about what happened to them, of what
Right.
I mean, what caused them to be uh, go through the sufferings and the diet and so on and so forth.
Right.
But there's another side of the story could also be captured as a good memories that might be as a part of learning, their struggle, their success, and those and so forth. Those things are also part of the life index sharing.
Yes, they are. So as I said, you can put in that extra text. We give you enough, space for you to write that. We give you enough, so you can put that information. That's up to you. A lot of people don't know how to write, but then a lot of times they say, you know what, I'm going to put some of it, and I'm going to use an AI from outside. Use that and write it. But the most beautiful thing is, no matter how bad grammatically it is, the beauty of it is that it comes from your heart, not something which is being generated by AI.
Okay, so somebody from the immediate family member, or maybe those who know about my grandfather or someone, they can write about it, and the same information can be passed on to the next generation, or maybe for
Right.
the matter same generation as well. They may read it
Yes.
out whenever that's access has been given to them within the family and the loved ones nearby,
So
right?
everybody has access to it. There's no such thing that nobody has access. You don't need to give access. So let's say if I put in information about my mother, all I have to do is either take that link and send it out to all my family members and friends. Or the other way is that if somebody's looking for my deceased mother, let's say my brother, or let's say my nephew, or my niece, they're looking for it. All they have to do is just go on our platform, type in my mom's name or type in the last name, and it will be able to correlate. Let's say a lot of names show up, but then you have to go and filter that this could be the person that I'm looking for.
So on the same, I wanted to ask because you mentioned the name, right? So the
Right.
moment, so suppose I'll take an example of some Kumar, Akshay Kumar. I that's the name has come.
That's the best name.
So suppose I'm searching the Akshay. So possibly the name of Akshay, all the stories of the other individual may also pop up, right?
Right. So
And that
it
may
will be a it'll be a list of people that you come through. Now you have to go back and filter them out. Let's say, for that matter, you go on one of the booking sites, and let's say you're looking for a hotel. Now, when you look for a hotel, you look for a city. Now, once you look for a city, you look for a 3 star, a 5 star, a 7 star, and so on and so on, and you'll filter those out. The same way goes for a name. Let's say somebody's looking for my mom, and now they would say, "Oh, where's my dad from?" My dad's from India, but what part of India is he from? So we will start, that person will start to relate, okay, this is the city that I should look for, and I will start filtering through. Or let's say, I might be able to see a picture and I say, oh, this person looks very similar to what my dad is or my grandfather was, right?
okay. So if I'm not mistaken, what it feels like this might not be very relevant for the Indian audience, and rather more applicable for the UK and the US model because there the where the family legacy is not very defined, right?
Tell me one thing. Indian legacy, in India, is the legacy being defined?
It's I'll not say that, but yeah, is with respect to the family tree, if you look at that way, because the culture itself is, if you look at that way, is pretty, as comparative to the Western market, is pretty strong.
Okay. No, it
And
isn't. You'll
when I
go
say
back and realize one thing: we don't. Me being an Indian, me being a Hindu as well, I understand that. Do you know your great grandfather's name?
no,
Good. So where's the legacy? What do you know of him? If you don't know his name, would you know anything beyond that?
okay,
How isn't it relevant? And when you go back to, have you ever been to Kashi?
yes,
Have you been to Haridwar?
sorry,
Have you been to Haridwar?
no,
Okay. When you go to Kashi or Haridwar, you'll always come across these people who are known as pandas. Now, pandas take information of the people who've died. Now, they only take the name, date of birth, death date, and the town that they are from. That's it. Now, once you go back, let's say I go back to put my mom's ashes out there, I will go and this somebody will show up and say, "Oh, I have information about him." But over a period of time, do you think that information is true? Because that is not available across the world. Now, I don't know how real is this information because it's written.
So, okay, so on the same, I wanted to ask you about, because the reason why I emphasized about the India and the compare it with the Western countries, because
Right.
the marriage system is pretty different when it comes to the Indian society and the same time Western. And there
Mhm.
it's difficult to, I mean, I myself have heard about it and I come across a lot of stories where people actually do not know who their siblings are or who their
Okay.
fathers are, which is not the
Okay.
case with the Indian society in general.
Okay.
And why did I
So,
shoot question?
so is it just the father that we're looking at? So we're not looking at father. We're looking at a lot more history. We're looking at every individual who's passed away. If you don't know anything about your great grandparents, what do you know about your great 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 grandparents? What do you know beyond that? No matter how well structured the world is, a community is. But at the end of the day, though, that information is vital, not only because of heritage, because of culture, and all those things. You might be a Hindu, but at the end of the day, what is that thing that connects you to your generations, or to your older generations, or to your family legacy? We don't realize one thing, that every family has had some legacy. So I come from a very small village. My dad comes from a very small village. And when I went to that village, I saw this old house that I've never been to in shambles. But the beauty of that house is that it holds so much of legacy that I was not aware of.
Okay, okay,
So it's not about you trying to find your father, you trying to find your sibling. And it's a lot more than that. Siblings. How much do you? I've got two brothers who lived outside the country. Right. We are. We kind of separated. I live in the UK. They live in the US. Now, over a period of time, they've got kids. Their kids will grow. They will have families. I have kids as well. They will grow and they will have family. Will they ever be able to connect?
very difficult.
Yeah. Not only that, because today internet gets you connected anyhow. But then for you to find that, you'll have to look for a legacy. You'll have to look for an anchoring point. How do you find that anchoring point?
Okay, now the next question where I wanted to ask more about the ethical part, okay, and the
Okay.
emotional side of this. A lot of
Mhm.
instances happen where people actually find it very difficult to move on from some of the memories, move on
Mhm.
from the some of the some of the loss that they are yet to recover. In that
Mhm.
case, do you think that that may create a challenge? Because if I'm not mistaken, then there
Mhm.
was a recent past news where Amazon was trying to create a virtual avatar that will talk in the similar voice with their family member, and that will actually create a very difficult to move on from those loss.
Mhm. So, are we trying to create an avatar? No, we're not. Are we trying to make sure a legacy is saved? There are two different things. When you create an avatar, you're trying to keep that person alive, because in a voice format or anyhow, but you will never be able to move on because you think in some realm they're still alive. But over here, you know the person's gone. One thing about Hinduism is, or Christian Hinduism or Islam is, or let's say more of Hinduism, we burn them. right? Once we burn them, there's no place for you to go back and say, you know what, I want to sit down and talk to my mom. And that's one thing that I missed out on. And I want to go back and say some things to her and just blurt my heart. Can I do that? Whereas in Christianity, you've got a you've got a tombstone. You've got you know that the body's been laid out over here. You go back over and over again and again every year, and you pay your last respect, or even not just because last every year. You can go anytime because you know your mom or your relative or somebody that you love has been buried over here, and that brings those emotions. Not only that, with Life Index, what it does, it helps you to move on because you've been able to pass that story of that person. Now, why Life Index happened? Because I wanted to make sure that I want to preserve my mom. She's done so much for me, right? That's how legacies work. Is when you know somebody's done so much for you, why aren't you trying to make sure that the next generations can get to know of them, their good deeds, their good things? The good things are not only done by the kings and the queens, the president, the prime ministers, all the rich and famous. They're done by your parents because they are the ones who've been around you and taking care of you in your thick and thin. And if I cannot preserve that, what are you leaving for your next generation? How do they know that we can connect back to the roots and say, my mom loved my grandmother or my dad loved my grandmother? That's a connection building in. That's emotion building in. That's a root building in. That's how you stay you stay human. That's how you stay more emotional, and that's how you connect with families over a period of time.
Coming back to the same conversation, since we are talking about healthy memories and uh, legacy at the same time,
Right.
information is available to because one can search through the name or the first name or the last name basis on the city. There's another dark side of it. One can misuse these things, and if I have the grudges against somebody or some individual per se, I can actually destroy the information in a certain way that will create a very wrong impact. And
Okay.
that's one side of the story. Second side of it, if I have a very wrong grudges against I may, because family has their own conflicts, and
Mhm.
and those conflicts most of the time goes unresolved and people gone by. So in that case, that may also give a very wrong impression to the next generation. Hey, my granddad has actually did something very wrong with them. My and ancestor has actually did something uh, that shouldn't be actually have been done.
Right.
So in that case, how do you see this? Or is it
Okay.
like everything has a pros and cons kind of thing? Is it?
Mm. So let's put it this way. If you look at information of the rich and famous, if you go on Wikipedia, you'll find Shah Rukh Khan's right from day birth to day today. You'll find everything about him. Is he scared about it? Why are we only the ones scared about it? Now
Well,
that's for the living people. Hold on. That's for the living people. Now for the deceased people. If somebody's died, what can you do with that information if somebody's died? What can be done? Let's say if I've put in information about my mom, that information isn't put in by me. Who else get an opportunity to change it? Nobody else does except me. Or let's say I pass it on to my grandchild, but they will never be able to change that information. Once somebody's died, you're not changing anything about them. You cannot change it or you cannot misuse that information. How do you want to misuse that information? That's one thing that I haven't been able to understand about being in India. And I speak to loads of people. They come back and they are worried about their deceased family members' information being misused. How? Somebody help me understand. How could it be misused?
okay. So this is when I say you're giving a specific use case of disease. I'm talking about the personal grudges.
Personal grudges, right? If somebody is died, we only do on our platform, it's only for the people who've died. We're not LinkedIn, we're not Facebook, we're not Instagram. We don't deal with people who are alive. We only deal with people who are dead. That's the difference about us. So that's why we're known different. And that's why we're the only company in the world which does this. And that's why we've been around for past 1 year and been able to garner that. the clothes across the world because we're different.
Okay. 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 So the reason I asked the question because, honestly, if I'm speaking, as going by the same statement, because I have a family has this conflict, but mostly goes unresolved, and
Uh-huh.
I okay, I'll give you my use case because I
Okay.
know about my grandfather. He has done something really wrong. I got to know not from my father, of course, from somebody else,
Uh-huh.
and whatever the respect I have had for him
Uh-huh.
probably got compromised now.
Uh-huh.
And that is something I was referring to and coming across. So anybody who is using it, they may text it out, boss, he has done this one. I mean, I don't know getting the nitty gritty of it, but honestly speaking, there are cases that, if in case you might have heard about the use cases or if in case there's a forum that runs at the globally, is called Landmark Forum. And so there I got to know that somebody's, they have abused, sodomized, rapes, and so that happens in the family. And those are very toxic memories.
Okay. So I go back to one more information. Now, if you go back to looking for Mahatma Gandhi or you go looking for Nehru, you'll find a lot of information which is demeaning, which is detriment his information, which was to a lot of people. You find all of that information. Has that changed for the family? Has that gone out and helped to say to the family that, you know what, it's detrimental? It hasn't changed anything. So, one more thing about people once they die, who's putting that information? Is it a third party which is allowed to put that information? Or is it your person, let's say my mom, who put in that information? I did, or my father did. So, those two people, or my brothers would have done it. Why would my uncles do it? Why would my, some distant relative do it? They would not do it, right? The person who's vital or who's important to them are the only ones who will do it. And what is provided of that information? That could be the best of information. You live with that. You say, well, I'll live with that. A third party can come all the time and say a lot of bad things about a lot of people.
Okay. Okay.
So you don't get, you don't deviate, you don't deviate. You say, this information has been provided by a resource, which is very important. Now, you go back to listening to a third party. I'm sure there are a lot of people who might talk shit about my mom, but I know my mom. I've lived with my mom. And that's what I want to cherish. And that's what I want my next generation to know. And the next generation. Because no matter how bad she was to people, she was very important to me.
Okay. 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 So this is more I wanted to understand from the concept wise and then where this comes from. But let's talk
Right.
about the business side because of course since you're running a company, it has some cost to be. It has
Right.
its own cost to run. How do you make the business out of it? Is it more of a if somebody is using the platform, they have to pay something? Is it?
Right. They have to. That's a one-time fee of 738 Indian rupees. That's not monthly, that's not yearly, just one time. Once that information is put onto the platform, anybody can come back and look at it. It will not be deleted off the platform ever again.
Okay. Okay.
And one more thing, how many funerals have you been to?
Sorry, come again.
How many funerals have you been to?
Funeral. Okay, that's a difficult question to answer, but if I'm not mistaken, not more than 2 to 3 in my so far lifetime.
When you go to 2 to 3, do you ever see one person coming back and saying bad things about that person who's gone away?
I may have a different opinion. They may not settle then and there itself, but of course, when the
I'm trying to figure out at that point in time, did they say anything wrong at that point in time?
no, no, no,
Good
that's
enough.
I was
So,
trying to clarify there that not immediately, but after a certain period of time, yes.
see, that information come back after they've gone away. A lot of people could talk a lot of things. But what is important to you is that's where we are. That if somebody's passed away, that information is vital now. Let's put it on to the platform. Once that comes in, so we have a very important use case or a very interesting use case. So there was this, I would say, a friend and acquaintance who I knew. So his father died on the 17th of January. He came back to me and he said, "My dad's gone. I would like to put his information on Life Index." I said, "Sure, go ahead. But can you approve of it right away? Because what we do is we take time to approve that information before it goes live." So once that information was provided to us, I said, "Look, you're a friend. I know you, and that's why I'm going to go ahead and do it for you. Otherwise, it takes anywhere about 24 hours to 72 hours, depending on the traffic." And he said, "Fine." We went ahead, made that live on the 19th of January, which was a third day. He went ahead and he floated that link to all the people who showed up on the third day. And you know how many people came back to write about this person? Were 180 people to write about him, all the good deeds, all the good things, all the good memories that they can remember of him.
Okay.
180 people writing something so important, something so vital. The story did not end right over there. So this guy has a child, and she was roughly about 5, 6 at that time. And once that child went back and started reading, every time she would read, she would have tears in her eyes.
Okay. 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 Makes sense. I mean, of course, that's another side of the use case that probably, of course, makes sense. And then it, of course, it's gonna vary from each individual. I mean, there's no one story that fits to everybody.
True.
Now, my next question to the same is, with the legacy has been there.
Mhm.
Difference has been it into the physical form, digital form, online form, and so on and so forth. And with respect to digital, the way digitalization has booming across globally, how do you
Mhm.
see this entire market is actually going for? And where do you see this entire digital legacy is actually in coming future? Where do you see this heading to altogether?
Well, as I can already, harp about it, is we're the only ones who are doing it. So this legacy will remain, and for family members to come back and realize that, there's so many good souls who have lost. And that just remains for you to go back and say, you know what? We've got our own personal history. We've got our own family history that we started looking at. When people come back with a family tree, that's not history. That's just a name. And with this being in the market, a lot of people can come back. So we have another case that happened to us. There's this lady in Malaysia. Now she writes programs for schools. And once we start speaking to her, she said, "You know what? This is the best thing." Why? Because kids today are losing roots. When they're losing roots, they're going ahead and doing anything and everything wrong. Now, in order for kids to stick around and do the right things, you need to understand your roots. And when you can understand that, that gets imbibed into you. That gets built into you.
Okay. 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 So, of course, the story is one side of the story, the textual format, but the same
Right.
digital say also consists of. So, I come across a lot of different companies, those who also does it as a part of digital legacy service provider, are into the social media providing online photos and so on and so forth. And the videos are also as part of it. What are things that you think as part of, because you have been in the same business, as part of the legacy can be given to the next generation, because it's not only about the family tree, it consists of a much major cultural aspect of altogether.
So that's why we talk about that individual. When you put a video and when you put loads of pictures, it's a moment that you've captured. It's not telling that person's story. Right? Let's say if you want to read about Mahatma Gandhi today, what do? Do you go watch videos of him? Even if you see videos of him doing Dandi March, do you realize anything? What is happening? It does not tell you everything. So what do you go? You look for the text format to read more about it. And that gives you your own perspective. That gives you a lot more insight into that person. And that could be more beautiful. And that's why over a period of time, even in several generations which have passed by, we've always had a text format. A text format lasts longer and has been able to change lives.
Okay, okay. So I actually this is something I wanted to speak more from the ge- generational wise change, because
Right.
the way more of a Gen Z or Gen Alpha, and then I don't. I think Gen Beta is also gonna come.
Right.
And
Jet beta and all that.
yeah,
Right.
so Gen Beta, I think those were born after 2024 or 2022. I'm not. I'm
Right.
so there is a major shift has happened with respect to readability. When I say
Uh-huh.
readability, people are not much interested in reading rather than more, and that's how the rise of podcast and those conversations. And that's how we are talking to. And these things are actually picking up to an extent that even journalism or this textual format is actually going down. So, do
Right.
you see that you are going against the trend, or is it like you have a belief system, boss? No matter what happens, texts are gonna be there.
Okay. So let's say you're doing a video podcast today. Over the next 10 years, the format of that video will change. Now, let's say we're doing it in 4K. Over the next 10 generation, it could be 20K. In 20K, which means your format would have lost that importance. On top of
Correct.
that, this format will become so blurry. Do I want to look at it? I would lose interest in watching this. Maybe momentarily, I might like watching it, but can I do it over and over again and again? But when you look at books or history, we read those over and over again and again because it does not lose that importance, because it still gives you that insight of that person.
Okay. 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 So my
So,
next question:
sorry, how young are you? How young are you?
how old am I? 35.
35. So if you've seen the shift from videos which were there in, let's say, 1980s, right? And the change has been so much that if you try looking at those videos and watching those videos, you don't want to watch those videos anymore, right? Because of the quality of it.
Correct.
So yeah.
Yeah. That's so again, I actually wanted to connect to the same conversation because this is one question that wanted to re-emphasize it again and again.
Right.
And I have seen this news coming every now and then with respect to a lot of especially these big techs, whether it's Amazon, Google, and Apple, and so on and so forth. They themselves are working a lot with respect to bringing back the voices and personas of those who are gone. Okay, and one is what's your thought on the same? And the same time, do you see that Life Index can also brace that? Because that could be another, again, this may be your call to how you want to, what USP you want to offer to the business, because each business has a different way to execute and offer to the customer. But do you see that that's one of the major area of business where you actually losing out, where the big tech are also trying to penetrate with the AI avatars, and then personas of those are gone, and then that's what they offer to the customer, that they can relate and then they talk to them. So suppose if I have one my grandfather's avatar, I can talk to them, and the way AI is altogether basis on the information they connect to the chat GPT, and then they try to discuss with you, it feels like you are talking to your grandfather.
Okay. So you talk about Gen Z, Gen Beta, and all that stuff. Will they be interested in doing that? Will they really bother about it? First of all, not. Right. Second, do you think Amazon hasn't failed with a lot of projects they've put out in the market? When we went out and started speaking to people, and when we came back, and people said, I don't want to see my grandfather. I don't want to hear his voice. Or let's say, I don't want to hear my mom's voice. I don't want
Okay.
to hear her. I want to look at her picture and I want to read her story and I want to pass her story across. That brings more solace to me rather than me trying to get her alive. It's more like, somebody's gone away. You're trying to keep them alive, but pump uh, something into them to get them to have them standing in front of you. I don't think I want that. Maybe I want to hear their story. I want to read their story, but not literally speak of them. And over a period of time, I don't know how many people, because the number of people that we've spoken to, they've come back. I don't want to do that. That's one thing. And again, the quality of the voice will change. The format of the videos will change. The AIs will deplete over a period of time because you've moved in generations, and there's no way that companies which have come out with something so huge, investing so much, that they haven't failed. They've failed in a lot of projects. They have to shut down those projects.
True. Big time, big time.
Even if you look at EV cars today, a lot of companies had to shut down. Apple was trying to make a car, but then Apple had to shut it down because they've realized that everybody's doing it. Why do I want to get into it? And also, they've realized that EV is not where we can sustain.
Okay, okay, okay. So one of the question that I wanted to ask from the immortality per se. Okay,
Uh-huh.
now, I don't want to say that Life Index is trying to create something digital immortality concept. No, it's not big. But the way Uber rich, especially folks like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and so on and so forth, they are so there are a lot of I think startups those are working on the preserving your cells out
Uh-huh.
creating a concept that will actually make you sustain for the much longer, maybe the beyond 100 years, and then if not then try to sustain yourself and so on. So but they're trying to create a concept of immortality, and they are investing, that's a major chunk of investment and stuff. So
Okay. Okay.
now with the life index altogether, digital immortality, I'll not say immortality, but with respect to stories and all, certainly it's coming in the picture.
Right.
Question that I wanted to ask you is because how do you see this future of altogether as a memorization of someone is gonna change with one life index, second AI thing, third is virtuality comes in coming in the altogether picture.
Right. So let's put it this way. Why have we kept our prices so low across the world? So that every family member or everybody can use it. Right?
Mm.
Second, if any bigger company comes in, do you think they'll be able to cost it so less because their model is about AI? AI is never going to be cheap to start off with. Or let's say Elon Musk trying to preserve his cells. Do you think every family member can afford it, or every person on planet Earth can afford it? So, which
Possibly.
means again you're losing out a lot of information, which is going to be again for the rich and famous or somebody who can afford it. Whereas Life Index is for everybody in every corner. And that's why we've kept the price so low that we're not losing out. And the family members are saying, you know what? I don't mind spending 738 Indian rupees. A very good question comes to me is, do you know how much every family spends on a funeral within India? A minimum spend.
Okay, okay, correct.
That's about 30,000 Indian rupees. And the only thing that we're asking for is 738 Indian rupees. And that's only one time.
Okay.
And in order for when you come back about AI and the voice, do you think something like that will last forever? Which means you'll have a monthly subscription. And when you have a monthly subscription, do you
That's not
think you
sustainable
are
model either.
sorry?
That's not sustainable model either because
But
they're
this,
gonna
yeah,
be pricey.
yes, and those are going to be pricey. On top of that, not everybody would want to do it again. Right? I cannot afford that money. I won't be able to do it.
Okay, okay. So it's more about making it accessible for the larger audience and keeping the price as low as possible. Correct, correct. Okay, so you being in something into the more into the legacy creation and all, I wanted to understand because now we are talking about the AI, virtual C, and so on and so forth. How do you see this technology with respect to similar kind of businesses and the way social media is penetrating anywhere and everywhere is actually changing the concept of death altogether. Now death
Okay.
is no death for the rich people because they can preserve most of the things. How do you see that technology is actually changing the entire landscape of this concept?
Again, what do you want to preserve of a human being? Do you want to preserve that? So we have another company that's partnered with us. They take the ashes of a person and they create, let's say, a pen out of it, or they create a pendant
Correct.
out of it, or they create a chain out of it. But can you pass it on to generations? Will it tell you a story? Will it tell the story of that person? What are we looking at? What is Life Index? It's about that story. It's about that living beings, persons, everything about them, who they were, how did they die, what did they die of, every good thing that you can remember of them, or anything that you can remember of them. You put that on that platform. That momentum is not going to tell you anything about them. Let's say, how many statues do you see in a city that you live in?
I guess
Every corner, every little roundabout that you go to, you'll find a monument, right, or maybe a statue, right?
you keep on coming every now and then.
Sorry.
I said you keep on coming every now and then at some distance, of course, of some
Okay.
famous
So
personality.
perfect. So which means every distance you come across. But do you know their story?
No, no. So that
How does that matter? But it's not about a physical being. Can everybody afford that statue? Can everybody afford that prize? Can everybody, is everybody looking? And even if you make a ring out of it or make a pendant out of it, how many generations will you be able to part it with? Let's say I've got two kids, for an example. Whom do I give it to?
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So in a way, if I have to put it in one word, no matter whatever technology you may use, or no matter whatever you may preserve, end of the day, all matters is the story, and that are the exact the legacy that ideally it makes sense because no matter whatever statue you may have, whatever you may preserve out of him or her, may
Right.
not make a major difference until unless you know about it, and the know factor comes only after knowing the stories part.
Sure. It's not just about a name. When I started working on LyfeIndex, so a lot of thoughts came to me that I wanted to put a statue of my mom in the village. She spent her, right from the time she got married and she stayed until the time she moved out of India. I wanted to put a statue over there, but again, those people who lived with her, they're almost gone. How many people would really take care of that? One fine day, birds will be pooping on it, right? And let's say if I put a bench over there and put a name, how many people would really say thank you very much for this awesome bench? And how many people really appreciate that?
No, in fact, if you talk about it, since you yourself in Indian origin, especially in India, and I'm not sure if it how far it is relevant for the Western countries. So in India, especially those who are gone, especially mom, dad, grannies, and so on and so forth, they hang their photos with the sense of things,
All
and they
right.
do all the worshipping and all. But despite the fact they are doing it, if you'll ask me about what was their past, probably I have no clue about that for sure.
Those pictures play, to a certain extent, they play a vital role because you get to see who these people were. But what about their story? What about the time that they've done for, let's say, my mom? I'm going to go back to my mom over and over, is because she's done so much for me, right? She was there in my thick and thin. And no matter how at times we did not speak, but she was always there. And I want to pass this on to my nephews, nieces, and everybody else, so they can say, "Wow, she was a great soul."
Yeah. Okay. My final
Even if
question.
I'm alive, hold on, sorry. Even if I'm alive and I can tell that story to my, let's say, even my grandkids, but that grandkids, while they're listening, they're so young. Do they remember those stories?
Correct. The answer would be straight no.
Yeah.
And forget about their grandkids. If you'll ask me about to talk about my granddad, I don't have much idea. I certainly
True.
don't. And when telling about myself, I'm representing the larger chunk of population.
And that's where we're losing that vital information. What is important is, you set a precedence, and if you don't set it, if you don't do it for somebody that has passed away in your family, do you think your kids will do it for you? So you're creating that sense of belonging, that sense of respect and sense of love as well. If I've done it for my mom, I might see my kids doing it for me as well.
Okay. Okay. So what I understood from the overall conversation, you, mom, has been an inspiration to build a life index. Am I right?
She is. And I love her. She's not gone from me. She's still alive. And I love her so much that this is for her, to thank her. But I will never be able to thank for the things that she's done. But this is just a minute part of her. It by saying thank you, mom, for you've done so much. I will make sure that your history lives on.
Okay. 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 So what's your background, if I may ask now, since we are talking a lot about the digital legacy, because you are a, I guess if I'm not mistaken, you are a Brit. I mean, you have become a Brit, right?
I was raised in the UK. I've been raised across the world. So I was born in India and then moved across the world. So I've lived in different parts of the world and then eventually settled down in the UK. But one thing about me is I've done my I've done BSc computer science, and then from there I moved on to MBA, done MBA, and then from there I've been to different jobs. So there's no job that I haven't done. The only thing that I haven't done is being a doctor and built a rocket. Besides that, I've done everything. I've been to sales, I've been to marketing, I've owned businesses, I've done I've been in customs. So when you walk into a country, into an airport, you see a red channel and green channel. So I've worked on those as well. I had the rights, I had gun and all those kind of things. So I've stopped people. I've had the right to arrest people. So those kind of things have happened.
Okay, okay. My final question to you is one thing that you want about the life index that anybody who's listening to remember.
Well, I would like them to remember one thing, that Life Index is not a memories platform, it's a memorial. You're setting up memorial for the next generations to know of this person. And that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that every legacy, everything that has happened in the past, that is passed on to the next generations. So we don't lose that vital information. Come back, use this platform. It's not expensive. 738 rupees won't harm anybody. It's only one time.
Okay. Okay. So, and you operate from the UK, is it? Or you also have an
Oh,
office in?
we are based, we're headquartered in the UK. So we're setting up an office in India as well. We're setting up an office in Dubai. We're setting up an office in South Africa. So we'll be across 195 countries.
Great. Yeah, great, Manoj. I mean, this is a new perspective that I got to know because so far what I have had been, I don't know what to call it as an illusion, but that's how it is moving towards with the AI, with the Avatar, with the Amazon tech. These tech companies and the startup, well-funded startup are trying to create is to preserve more of an Avatar kind of thing where the voice can be preserved and that can be connected to the chat GPT or maybe something likewise where they can actually talk to the people and that's how they find that they are still alive. But this
Right.
perspective, because with the textual format, as you said it's never gonna out of the market because text are remain there. It has to be there. There's something has to be there and to pass on to the generations because no matter whatever we talk about the legacy until unless whatever you create, whatever you own, whatever is there altogether, until unless you do not know the story behind it, it makes no sense except
True.
you just can feel and touch it. So thank you so much for your time and all the best for you there with
Very
Life Index.
much. Pleasure. Thank you very much.